Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Noxious Anonymous. Today I am joined by the senior editor of Birth Movies Death, Evan Saathoff, and we're here to talk about David Lynch and Twin Peaks and anything having to do with the new show coming up on Showtime this May 2017. Evan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So for those out there that don't know your website, how would you describe Birth Movies Death compared to like other entertainment sites out there?
I don't want to make a contrast that says other sites don't have personality. I'm not saying that, but I think we have a pretty good personality that people come for. A lot of jokes, and then a lot of serious film discussion going on as well. I think it's a unique site that I'm really proud to write for.
And what does a senior editor do? Like, how do you do that? Since you're getting articles from all over the country or the world from other writers.
Yeah, well, I line up articles. I approve pitches. I go get articles that we need. I edit them for proofreading, but also like for content and stuff. And then I also pitch in and write, contribute news stories or essays about movies. I don't do as many of those lately, but I do when they're needed, and a lot of stuff like that. I'm on the site less than I used to be now that I'm editing more. But I really like it, the editing aspect of it. We're bringing in a lot of brand new writers who are writing for the first time, and guiding them and their voices has been a real privilege for me for the last few months, and I'm pretty excited about it.
And where does the website, because I know it really likes to discuss politics with movies more than other websites tend to do. So where does that all come from? Like, was that kind of a mission statement from the beginning? Because I know it was called something else before Birth Movies Death, but is that something that is a mission statement for the writers, or is that something just overall from the site itself?
It's basically from the writers. We like to let writers express themselves. And if they have a point of view on something, we're not going to tell them that they can't make that part of what they're saying in their piece. A lot of movies, even if they're not political, are kind of political. So there's always like a way to look at it, maybe a perspective no one thought of. And we're not saying that we have to present a certain point of view. We're letting the writers do as they wish. If they have something to say, they're welcome to say it.
Yeah, I find it really interesting how some like articles like will take on a political aspect, even if it's like you weren't like expecting that aspect to come in, and then when it comes in, you're kind of like, wow, I didn't even think about it that way. So
yeah, I mean, it depends on the writer. I don't ever write political stuff. For instance, there's no mandate for it. I just do what I want. Me as a writer with my individual voice, and this website allowed me when I was just a freelancer to do that. And sometimes I would do crazy extreme stuff that no one told me not to. So
can you move your mic just a little bit? There, we got a little bit of static there. I don't know if there's.
I don't know.
Okay, that's better. Much better. I don't know what happened. So you are currently writing the Twin Peaks articles for that site. Is that something that you yourself said, okay, this is the topic I want, or did these just kind of stumble into your lap and you're just writing them?
News stories are sort of divided between myself and our news editor, Scott Wampler, and like a Twin Peaks story, no one has, it's not anybody's pet project, I don't think. It's just whoever is around to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so going back, how did you discover David Lynch and Twin Peaks for that matter?
I don't remember what my first David Lynch movie was. It's probably pretty far back. Twin Peaks, I saw little bits of when I was a kid. And then when I grew up, I got, the VHS set.
Right.
I got that. That's when I really watched it for the first time. And then sometime like in 2012, I think, we did a a rewatch of it on the site. It was myself and Brian Collins and Meredith Borders, and that was the last time I've seen the series. And that'll probably be the last time I see this series. I think I got all Twin Peaks out as far as the original show goes on that. I love Fire Walk with Me though, quite a bit, and I rewatch it every so often. I love pretty much all David Lynch movies, though I never did get around to seeing Inland Empire, so I can't comment on that one. Maybe it makes me not the biggest Lynch fan. But I love all of his other movies, up to and including Dune. I don't know. I think Lynch is great. And as I would say, a medium Twin Peaks fan, I am really excited about the new series just because he's directing them all.
Mm-hmm.
That more than anything is what excites me about it.
So when you had the box set and then when you rewatched it in 2012, what happened in that time you think that made you become not like the series quite as much as you remembered thinking? Was there something that stood out to you?
Well, it wasn't like that. I think I was accurate in my assessment from the first watch. It's just a hard second season, and it remained harder because I already knew what was going to happen, so I didn't even have like the surprises got like waiting for me. It was just sort of like slogging through familiar territory until the last 2 episodes, and that's fine. It's just that combined with the compulsory viewing and writing on it when it was done, I was like breathing a sigh of relief. That's all.
What do you think is the hardest subplot to get through in season 2 for you?
I think probably the same answer as everybody. I don't like the James soap opera stuff.
Oh, the James and Evelyn story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a running joke on this podcast is that that a lot of aspects of that subplot that everyone can't stand found its way into Lost Highway. So
I guess that's pretty true. That makes sense.
So let's go into Fire Walk with Me. What do you find positive about that film? Because when that movie came out in 1992, as you probably remember, it fizzled, not just in box office, but even a lot of Twin Peaks fans turned their backs on it initially. So what aspects of it do you latch onto that you find pretty positive?
Well, it's not surprising people didn't like that movie when it came. It's kind of a movie for nobody.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make Twin Peaks people happy. It's really alien to that show. It didn't have to be. I guess they had there's a bunch of deleted scenes with familiar characters, but they were excised. Mm-hmm. But being its own thing, it's pretty interesting. I adore the first 20 minutes. Maybe my favorite thing he's ever done, I think, could be the first 20 minutes there with Desmond and the Bowie part, and I love it. I think it's hilarious. I mean, it's dark, but I always find I find that opening, that prologue, to be really funny in a way that's very specific to David Lynch, and is probably what I like most about David Lynch when he hits those notes, and that's what that's all about. And then once it becomes its own movie, especially when you watch it a few times, it becomes more interesting and more satisfying in a Twin Peaks way, in terms of Laura Palmer for sure. But like your first watch, it's kind of shocking how different it is tonally than Twin Peaks. But if you read like the diary and know all that stuff, it's pretty interesting. But I do think it works best as its own movie, because it's definitely idiosyncratic as its own thing, separate from Twin Peaks, and maybe that's the best way to view it. I've never seen it on the big screen. That would be a big deal to do that someday. I think that would be a good one.
Yeah.
Or it would send me into an epileptic fit.
Well, what's interesting too about Fire Walk with Me is, like you said, because it begins with the Desmond, Sam Stanley investigating Teresa Banks, and then it goes into Laura Palmer, that almost became like a shift in Lynch's work. Because if you look at Lost Highway, that's 2 stories that are combined. Mulholland Drive is 2 stories that are combined. You know, it just seemed like he really liked to do the one story and the second story and have them just barely touch enough, that it could work as a movie, but it's almost two different films.
Very good observation.
So what do you, in the first like 20 minutes, what do you think is the funniest part to you in Fire Walk with Me in that first half?
Probably, boy, it's a tough call between when they interview the waitress at the diner or when they're dealing with the obstinate cop. Got a phone, it has a little ring. That's pretty good. Probably the diner lady, though. I like, I don't know that I didn't really chop it up into bits
Sure.
and think about which is the funniest one, but I suppose that's my favorite.
Did you see the missing pieces that were released?
No, I still haven't.
Okay.
I understand
Yeah.
a couple of them are on YouTube, but I never really got around to checking them out.
Eventually everything is to YouTube. So, okay, so you have this show, Twin Peaks, coming back after 25 plus years. Are you working in the entertainment industry? Are you surprised as much as I am that they've managed to keep so much under wraps while they made like an 18-hour movie?
I suppose I am. Some stuff they keep a good lid on. I mean, episode 8, for instance, really hasn't leaked much, and some of them are just like a sieve, like just pictures all over the place. They must be doing Twin Peaks mostly indoors or in a remote place. Just nothing's come out, I don't
Right.
believe, unless they wanted it to. So they're doing a really, really good job with it. I suspected there was a while where I thought that there was no information because nobody knew. Like maybe Showtime didn't even know, but they've seen it now. I mean, it's obviously they do now. But I was wondering if Lynch was keeping things secret even from them.
Probably. Yeah, when they released that huge cast list, I thought, oh, well, we're going to get some leaks just because of how big this cast is, but amazingly, once they stopped shooting out in the public up in Washington State, any potential pictures or leaks just got the kibosh, it was over. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Everyone's so excited about that cast list, but I bet 90% of those people you see for 2 minutes tops, they're gonna be cameos. I bet.
right. Yeah, I agree. Are you? I'm kind of curious. What do you think is going to happen when this show drops? Obviously, there's going to be an enormous amount of attention on the opening night and the first couple episodes. But you've seen a lot of other things kind of come back. X-Files came back last year. I mean, is there a possibility that this could be another one of those, another Much Ado About Nothing, where there's so much hype and then it comes out and people kind of forget it was even on?
Could be. I mean, we really only have the attention span for a weekend. I mean, I'm not really 100% sure how this show is going to be um, like presented. I understand it's going to begin with 2 episodes together, and then that night or the next day, another 2 episodes are coming online.
Right.
And then, so the online aspect of it is curious to me because it's going to be like a weekly show for 17 weeks, maybe. Yet there might be some kind of different model for releasing them online. But since I don't know, I guess I can't comment too much on that. But with Twin Peaks, it might be a little bit different than how easily we just forget things just because it's so puzzle based and people are really into paying close attention to shows like that and probably until the season's over, and then who knows, they might be arguing about it for years to come like some people do about the original Twin Peaks to this day. It could generate that kind of intensity from the fan base, but that would be a niche fan base, as it always has been, since the show went off the air. I don't mean when it was on, it was popular, but it's become a cult kind of thing.
Definitely think once it became streamable on Netflix, I think that really helped get people back involved because, one thing that's interesting is because they didn't use modern music. I mean, obviously, it's all scored by Angelo Badalamenti. That it it kind of has that timeless feeling because except for like some of the women's hair, it's you can't really place what time it takes place in. So I think that's another reason why people still kind of gravitate towards it and watch it because a lot of other shows at that time just do feel dated of that time. So
yeah, it's a pastiche of soap opera stuff, and he's got a real thing for the 1950s. I suppose the news show will probably have the same lack of modern visual stuff.
Yeah, who knows?
Same way. I mean, who knows? It's true.
Yeah, it's I'm just kind of curious to figure out, like, I'm just wanting to know right now, what's the public's reaction going to be, because this is going to play over the same summer as, Game of Thrones season 7. And, there's going to be obviously a lot of attention given to both shows, but I'm curious which is will Twin Peaks, get back into the public consciousness, or will it just get steamrolled by Game of Thrones and it'll just be that little underground show that Showtime experimented with?
I don't know. TV doesn't have to be that big anymore.
Yeah.
The pressure to deliver a hit, I don't really think exists. It's Showtime. People are going to talk about it. A lot of people are going to get Showtime just to watch it.
Right.
Me included, one way or another. And so that's a win for them.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be like must-see TV on NBC kind of situation. So it has that going for it. It's more of a conversation thing. I don't think it cares about competing with Game of Thrones numbers-wise. Really.
Right. I got a little worried when they said that that season 3 or whatever is going to be kind of one and done, because I assumed that when they went to 18 episodes that we would get, half of it for this season, and then they would hold the back end for, another season, because obviously Showtime doesn't want people coming on, joining, getting the channel or getting the streamable website, and then getting rid of their subscription after the show's over. So I thought they would at least try to extend it 2 years by splitting that 18 episodes into halves.
Maybe David Lynch said no to that.
Yeah, perhaps.
I imagine he got to say pretty much whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
They really wanted him to do this, and so I think it was like his way or the highway.
True.
I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Yeah. What do you think so far of the marketing you've seen?
Well, broadly speaking, we pretty much just had like 2 little teasers. I think there was one a while ago that was just the music and maybe the sign. I can't remember. But you got to see Gordon Cole and you got to see Agent Cooper. That's exciting. People kind of just want to know what they're going to look like. It was cool seeing Cooper. He didn't really have to say anything for that to generate some excitement for me. I don't know. Other than that, there's not much. It's been very quiet. They're letting the mystique do the work for them.
It's kind of nice.
Their marketing is, yeah. I mean, they're getting marketing out of just announcing things, like its release date and how many episodes it's going to be. When you have no concrete information for such a long time, then you start letting some of it out. That works as marketing too, at least in my bubble. I don't know about regular people.
Now you wrote, you wrote an article kind of announcing that the little teaser trailer with Cooper had just come out. What was the reaction to that from in the comments and stuff from your article? Are people pretty jazzed, or do you see a lot of like, I don't know, I'm still worried about it coming back?
I think, I don't remember what the comments on that one were like, but in general, they're always going to have people that are not as, fool me twice about these reboots. And you're always going to have people that are really excited regardless, depending on the property. We've had some examples where these come out and they're fine. They're not all disasters in the last couple of years. Like I really like the Wet Hot American Summer prequel series. I didn't watch it, but I think generally people like that Gilmore Girls reunion show. They're not all bad, and this one's so strange. I don't know that it's being judged quite so harshly on those terms, though. Like I said, there's always some people that are going to be like that.
I'm curious to know, how are they going to introduce this to new viewers? Are we just going to begin it with another body wrapped in plastic floating down the river, or because I mean, to bring in a new viewer and say, okay, Agent Cooper is trapped in the Black Lodge and his doppelganger's out in the world. It's kind of a bizarre place to begin a show for new viewers 25 years later. So I'm really interested to know, how are they going to bring in the new people while satisfying, the original audience as well.
There's always the chance they won't care.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know who owns Showtime, if it's the same people. Disney owns ABC, right? And
Right.
Twin Peaks was an ABC show?
Yeah.
Or is it CBS?
It was ABC.
I'm just wondering who owns it and if they're going to be able to use footage from it. And with everybody owning everything, it's possible they can. I don't know. But
well, CBS owns it in terms of the Blu-ray, and CBS is partnered with Showtime.
Well, there you go. So they might be able to do like a recap, though I'm not 100% sure like how much time you're going to spend on a recap of Twin Peaks that would get people ready for a new show. Also, be prepared for the fact that they might have a show that doesn't reference the original as much as you want, or the events of it, or how it ended. They could do that too. It could be as much related to the original show as Fire Walk with Me was. And in fact, I would lean toward betting on that over like a direct continuation of how that. I mean, obviously, because 25 years go by, but I mean, like, it might not even be in Twin Peaks that much.
Right. And all indications suggest that it's not.
That's kind of what I've been hearing too.
Yeah, because they didn't film a whole lot up there.
In fact, it's not even going to be called Twin Peaks, I don't think. This is a while ago. I remember reading it was going to have a different name. I don't know if that's a fact or not, though. But
well, if it has a different name, they better get in on that, because all the trailers. I guess the trailers just kind of show the sign, and then it says The Return. It doesn't even say a title. That's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. But I don't know that the show is interested in getting new people necessarily. It might be the onus to know what's going on beyond the viewer. And they might make that leap. A lot of people are going to be talking about it. Sometimes we just get shows that are popular more because they're fun to talk about than they're necessarily entertaining. Right.
And people can easily catch up by, the Blu-ray set or the, Netflix or whatever. So, I mean, it's not like, we can't figure out what's happening. Obviously, you can watch the new series or watch the old series the weekend before the new one even comes out. So
maybe more than a weekend. But
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long.
So it's been over 10 years since David Lynch has actually directed like anything besides a commercial, or I guess he did the Duran Duran concert movie. But in terms of like, the type of films that he makes, do you think the people who are, 18 to 25 today, that, were 10 to 15 back then. I mean, do you think David Lynch is a taste that, that people will find, still appealing in this day and age of I'm talking about like the younger generation, or do you think they, will look at, maybe a lot of his work and think, well, he isn't as, representative of of things I like, because he doesn't have a lot of African Americans in his work. He doesn't, a lot of the other ethnicities and stuff like that typically are, more played as like bad guys or villainous in some ways. If that continues in the new Twin Peaks, sort of like, like Josie in the Hong Kong connection and all that, is there a chance that there is going to be a backlash like with that kind of stuff? Because it seems to be that when things like that happen, Twitter just explodes.
There's always a chance. He's like, you know, one of our arty filmmakers. But I don't think that gives him a pass for modern standards that we or Twitter hold artists to. And there's a hot take for everything. So there's going to be hot takes for Twin Peaks.
I mean, if Twitter turns on Joss Whedon, I just, you know, so, I'm surprised. I don't know. You know, you sometimes, you know, you look back at Lynch's work, and I love so many of his movies, but I remember growing up and reading about, you know, just the attacks on Blue Velvet in terms of, you know, the way that people were upset, the way he showed Isabel Rossellini, or Roger Ebert going after him in Wild at Heart for, you know, beating, you know, African Americans' head against the marble floor in the opening scene, or having, you know, African American torturing somebody using voodoo and stuff with the Harry Dean Stanton thing. And I'm just curious, like if the new Twin Peaks goes into that territory, I'm curious to see if people will be like, well, it's David Lynch and we just like David Lynch, or whether the internet and Twitter will just like try to take it down if they you know, if there is stuff in there that people find very objectionable. Because remember last season with Game of Thrones, there was that whole thing with Jaime and Cersei where he forced himself on Cersei, and Twitter was calling for Game of Thrones to, you know, be to apologize for having a scene like that. So
I'm sure both those things and everything in between is going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if he was dealing with problems with representation 10 and 20 years ago, he's definitely going to now.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll be able to take a show down. And we also don't know what some of the problematic things would be. I don't know. It's too hypothetical to even guess. And it's a little strange to like automatically assume, although Lynch is Lynch, I guess it'll be along the lines of what we've seen already in those terms. But yeah, it's a pretty safe bet that there's going to be stuff that upsets people on Twitter.
I mean, he's going to push buttons no matter what. You know, I think of that episode when you know, when they discovered who Laura Palmer's killer was in the series, and Maddie is killed in the living room with Bob. If that played today on just regular ABC television, I mean, imagine the parents groups or anybody else just screaming on Twitter, "Take this off!" And I can just I guess I'm just nervous because I've never seen a David Lynch work produced at the height of social media.
No.
So
it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I doubt he cares too much.
I don't even think he's really on there. You know, I think he just has his assistant type something up.
I used to follow him, and he would just like tweet the weather and stuff. Maybe that's the most valid way to use it.
Hey, for anybody watching this live, if you guys have any questions, throw them in the comments and we'll get to them. So yeah, do you have besides, you know, Fire Walk with Me, do you have a favorite Lynch movie?
I really like The Straight Story a lot.
That's a beautiful movie.
I suppose when I was younger, I was big into Wild at Heart, but I don't think I like it as much as, you know, when I was a teenager. I still like it, but it's not hitting the same buttons. Yeah, I'll just stick with The Straight Story. I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, and I remember when that movie came out, people were like, "What is this David Lynch directing a G-rated Disney movie? This is ridiculous." And I'm like, he's not directing Air Bud. I mean, it's a legitimate film. I mean, you talk about wanting to see Fire Walk with Me on the big screen. If you ever get a chance to see Wild at Heart on the big screen, do it, because the sound design is just absolutely insane. Um, Especially with like the title exploding onto the screen with the fire and the all the heavy metal music blasting and stuff like that. I think films like Wild at Heart, or Tony Scott's True Romance and things like that. There's just certain films, Natural Born Killers, that you're supposed to see at a certain age and then kind of just move on from it, because I think it just appeals to that 14 to 18-year-old crowd. And
I think that's probably accurate.
the Straight Story I find so incredible. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a title that very few people ever mention. But it's it's a very moving film to watch. And then of course after the fact, after Richard Farnsworth had cancer and committed suicide, it's like it's doubly hard to watch that now without feeling like every word is so precious that he says.
I mean, he's a real good presence in that movie.
Yeah,
it's really sweet. He's really sweet. It's a sweet movie
without it being like that sentimental that that makes you feel like the whole thing is trying to just manipulate you into crying or something like that. It's just,
I don't think it's like, it's not like that at all. I like The Straight Story on its own merits, but it proves that David Lynch is a real filmmaker, not just an artsy weirdo, with he's there. Everything's so nightmarish with how we perceive David Lynch as an icon. And sometimes if that's all you do, then you start wondering, like, well, is that all you can do? And I like the idea of a director who has a very specific wheelhouse, but has the skill set to do something completely different like that. And that's kind of a main value of The Straight Story, in my opinion. I mean, Elephant Man's kind of like that too. To an extent, Dune's kind of like that also. But The Straight Story is right down the middle, just straight up movie. And he can do it, and he does it really well. It's great as a film like that. And I like that we have this proof that David Lynch could have been just a regular guy. If he had directed Return of the Jedi, maybe it wouldn't be all that different.
Yeah, probably not. But I do think the way he photographed Baron Harkonnen and Dune is maybe a little bit how he would have photographed Jabba the Hutt. So
maybe.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing The Straight Story and just being just incredibly moved by it. And it's like the opening is very reminiscent of Blue Velvet in terms of like just like establishing the town, but obviously it doesn't go in that mystery thriller direction.
He doesn't subvert it ever.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Let's see. Well, one person wants to know, do you have any opinions on about Annie and how's Annie at the end of Twin Peaks? Do you think we haven't heard if Heather Graham is in this show or not in the show, but I mean, I think you made it clear that we don't even know if it's even gonna talk that much about the previous series, but Kyle MacLachlan has said that we will find out how's Annie doing. So hopefully it doesn't begin with her body just floating down the river in plastic. So
yeah, I wouldn't have expected to even hear about Annie at all. I'm surprised that they're gonna clear that up. So I guess is the question how was the question framed? My opinion about it?
Yeah, like how do you think they're gonna resolve that issue, if you think they're gonna resolve it at all?
Annie should be okay, right? Like, he sacrificed himself to get her out of there. I would imagine she just lived the rest of her life. I didn't expect it. I don't know. I never thought of it like Cooper Bob was going to leave that bathroom and go after Annie, but what do I know? I know that I listened to The Secret History of Twin Peaks, and they mentioned a couple times Cooper leaving Twin Peaks. after the events of the show, they didn't mention Annie. I got the impression he just kind of wandered off, and everyone was like, "Something's wrong with that guy," but
Yeah.
they didn't hear from him again.
What did you think of that book, that, you know, The Secret History of Twin Peaks? I know you say you listened to it, but overall, what was your reaction to it?
Well, first of all, if anyone's thinking of reading it, I recommend it, but I recommend you read it. It was weird to listen to because it's like a collection of articles being read, but also being read like double read, like an FBI agent is reading them and marking them as well. So you're getting it with notes in the margins and then notes about the notes, which is an odd audio experience. But you could just look at it right on the page and have it make sense with your eyeballs. I bet that's much nicer. The book, I didn't love it for about half of it. I didn't want to hear about. I wanted to hear about stuff that was directly related to the show.
Mm-hmm.
When the book goes into those, I really liked it a lot. But as a kind of tertiary document about Twin Peaks, my interest about like Lewis and Clark and Richard Nixon and all that wasn't strong, and so I was sort of like having a hard time paying attention or keeping myself going through it for those long periods of the book, especially in the first half.
I agree. I think that, you know, it goes for so long, and there's only so much little Twin Peaks stuff kind of peppered in there that after a while you kind of, especially when you're reading it, you think, where is this going? You know, because it's not intertwined in a way that feels like, okay, you're getting a little bit of history and a little bit of Twin Peaks all tied together. It feels like history lesson and then just like a sprinkling of Twin Peaks stuff and then history lesson for like 20 pages straight, you know?
Yeah, and then the book has two mysteries you got to get to the end to resolve, and they're character based from Twin Peaks characters. And I won't spoil it, but like it repositions a very minor Twin Peaks series character in a new light that I just don't think will ever square with the way this person is represented in the show, with how he's represented in this book. And so I didn't really love that too much. But it's a real good book and this is not like some coy way to spoil what I just said, but it's a really, really good book if you're a fan of Briggs, Major Briggs. And there's a lot of good stuff about Ed and Nadine I like. But it's weird, and it's definitely not a place to go to have a lot of questions answered or anything like that.
Yeah, it kind of, a lot of people got it thinking it was going to answer some big things, and you're just kind of left going, where's the Twin Peaks in this book? Yeah.
It answers a couple things. I mean, first of all, you do find out that Cooper leaves Twin Peaks, and I think is probably still in the FBI. And you find out the aftermath of the bank explosion,
mm-hmm.
which I was happy to hear about. That's about it, though. There's not a lot.
Did you see those on-set photos of like Cooper in that like really bad like 70s getup, like going into that like cheap motel that they were? Oh, okay, yeah. I think that's a scene that Jennifer Jason Leigh's in, and I guess if you're gonna shoot anything in a cheap motel, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Kyle MacLachlan dressed up in 70s garb, I think that you can't get better than that, I think.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
can't wait.
Let's see.
Are a lot of people asking you questions?
There's questions, but they're kind of peppering in.
You said you've been doing this show for 3 years?
Yeah, on and off. Not on.
I don't know how you can talk about Twin Peaks that much.
Well, it kind of started completely accidentally. I interviewed Jennifer Lynch, and by talking with her, it kind of brought back a lot of like my childhood, like, oh, I remember Twin Peaks and that type of thing. So I started kind of getting back into it, and then a Twin Peaks page on Facebook reached out to me and asked if I wanted to admin on there and post stories or and things like that, or things from my collection. So I did. And then a few of the other admins on there said, hey, well, we should record something once in a while. And so we started doing that kind of off and on. And then once the show kind of got picked up, or was coming back officially, it was like, okay, well, people are already kind of listening to us, so we can turn this more into, kind of updates about how the new show's going, news updates, that kind of thing. But I mean, the channel talks about a lot of other things, but a lot of people tune into the Twin Peaks videos, especially with all the new interest in it with with the new show, especially once the Blu-ray set was announced with the missing pieces, and then I think a month or two later the new show was announced to come out. That's when interest started peaking. And then when Lynch jumped off the project, when he quit, it just like people started turning to us going, what's going on, as if we're behind the scenes knowing everything here. so yeah, it's had many ups and downs, let me tell you. And I'm sure, as writing articles about genre and fandom and stuff, you start to realize just how wide fandom gets, and how sometimes people will just jump on you over the littlest of things. So
yeah, I know a lot about that.
Yeah. I figured as much. Let's see, they're wondering if Shelley was pregnant at the end of season 2, because everyone's trying to figure out who the hell Michael Cera is going to play in this new season. Everyone seems to think it's going to be Lucy and Andy's kid, but who knows?
Yeah, could be, but I would just expect him to also maybe be a person that works at a convenience store.
Yeah, very true. They're all calling each other douche waffles in the comment section right now. So yeah, not too many questions coming in, but hopefully they'll be in a few minutes. So yeah, where do you think Birth Movies Death is going to go when this new series comes out? Are you guys going to be doing recaps, or just articles about stuff? Or are you guys going to do because I know sometimes you guys do podcasts and stuff as well. Is there going to, where do you guys going to go with this new show, if at all, anywhere?
I suppose the decision would be made between full-on reviews or just more of like a discussion thread. We go back and forth. We don't have we kind of do what we want and play it by ear when it comes to TV coverage. So I don't know. It might be like what we did with Westworld, where it was more or less just like a discussion thread. Let people talk it out in the comments. I wouldn't want to write it up, Twin Peaks. But someone might, someone on our team might really want to do it. And if they did, I highly doubt we'd say no to that. So closer to it coming out, like maybe a day before it comes out, I'm sure is when we'll know what we're doing. But it'll be on the site one way or another, I bet, like after each episode.
I find it so interesting that Lynch, directed this thing as one giant movie and then decided in the editing room where to make the cuts for the episodes. That's something
I like the sound of that. I like that freedom and that idea that he rolled with whatever he saw in front of him and the best way to do it, and he had the power to make it so. I think that bodes well for the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I always theorized that would mean that some episodes could be 40 minutes long, some could be an hour long, depending on where to make the cuts. And to me, that's a very exciting way to approach television, especially
I wonder how Showtime squares away the remaining time if Sutton stops midway through a half-hour chunk. Like, I don't know how Showtime or HBO, so I don't know how that works. I never really thought about it before. It's not like Netflix where an episode can be 42 minutes and the next one can be 50 and it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
It affects the rest of their programming block, but that's probably a boring thing to talk about. But if it doesn't begin or end on a half hour, that might be hard for them to. I don't know what those page channels do. You?
No, I think we're in uncharted territory here. Okay, we have a question. Evan, do you feel that this new series of Twin Peaks will lead Lynch into making a new movie, or do you think it will keep him into like maybe doing another season of television, regardless if it's Twin Peaks or not?
I bet he would want to do a movie after 18 episodes worth of TV filmed all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine making a little movie like on the fly. I bet might appeal to him, but he's David Lynch. He might also just want to make some mailboxes at home for a long time. I don't know.
If I was 71 or about to be 71, he turns 71 on January 20th, the day that Donald Trump does the inauguration. If I was going to be 71 and I directed an 18-hour movie, I might think about retiring. That's a lot. That's a huge task.
Yeah, 18 hours of TV.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I mean, even Stanley Kubrick, died at 70 right after Eyes Wide Shut. I mean, I can't imagine if he had done an 18-hour version of Eyes Wide Shut for Showtime or something,
Yeah.
So, we have a question from Debbie. Evan, do you think the music will differ with the new series? And have you heard the new Eddie Vedder song?
I don't think the music will change too much. I have not heard the new Eddie Vedder song. Is it Twin Peaks related? I know he's in it.
Yeah, it's there's a single that just got released, and it's on YouTube actually. So I like it. A lot of Twin Peaks fans were saying, well, it doesn't feel like Twin Peaks. Well, to me, I feel like this is going to be more like Wild at Heart in terms of the score, because if we are bouncing all over the globe or going other places, then the music should be more representative of where we are. It shouldn't all have that jazzy Badalamenti tone, if we're in New Orleans or something, So
yeah, I mean, Firewalk with Me had that kind of like, it had a different sound.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible. I don't know. You never know, but I would just like warn people not to hold on to what Twin Peaks was too tightly, because I think it'll just have to be quite a bit different. I would not want you to be upset about that, because it's possible that if he tried to recreate what he did, it would suck.
We could have another Kingdom of the Crystal Skull on our hands.
Something like that, maybe. And you don't want that. It's a matter of trusting Lynch to do what he set out to do. Whatever it was in his head that made him want to come back and do this. The idea is like, I hope he executed it to the best of his ability. I was pleased with it. And if that's true, I don't really care how Twin Peaksy it is. It'll be interesting, and it's cool that we have it, but I don't think it'll be much like the show. We'll have like the main theme and stuff, but I just kind of bet that it's not like slavishly recreating the aesthetic of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it probably will be just 25 years later, just in the same world, but just time has moved on,
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to feel like it's still 1991 in there.
Yeah, I mean, like, we've been through this. We keep saying it, but Firewalk with Me is really different from Twin Peaks. I mean,
yeah, and it doesn't even follow the same continuity in many instances. So maybe, people were complaining about the continuity in Frost's books. So who knows? This could be, like I was saying the other day, this could be like the fourth continuity going on. I mean, it doesn't even have to. It may not even follow a lot of, things that we are.
Fans hold on to that continuity.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Oh, okay. Here's a question. So remember last year there was that whole controversy that happened with Michael J. Anderson, who plays the man from Another Place, and he came out and started ranting and raving, calling Lynch all these names and stuff like that, saying that he just saying horrible things. Do you think that he is in the show and then he got all pissy because his role wasn't as big as he wanted to, kind of like the way Charlene Finn went complaining on Twitter about that? Or do you think he's just been cut out altogether? Somebody wants to know what you think if the little man's going to be back in this show.
I sure hope he is. He was on the list, right?
I don't think he was.
Well,
but who knows if that list is accurate? We don't even know if that's accurate.
Yeah, I thought it was official, but
no, I mean it's official, but there could be so many people left off it too.
Oh, I think the only people not on that list are like you and me.
Yeah, probably.
The person who asked this question. It would be weird if he's not in there, but that's the kind of stuff we should steel ourselves to start expecting. I forget this controversy. It's like a vague memory for me.
Well, I don't want to necessarily bring it entirely back up just because it wasn't just a pack of lies, but it just, it hurt a lot of people, including Jennifer Lynch and things and like that. And it got a lot of people wondering what the hell is happening behind the scenes. But let me follow it up with, how do you think, if you were going to be a betting man, how do you think they're going to approach Bob in this series, if at all? Do you think Ray Wise is going to basically play the manifestation of Bob, or do you think they're going to go in a new direction? Do you think they're going to do CGI?
They're not going to do that. I would just assume Cooper was going to play Bob. I think there are plenty of ways around it. They're not going to do CG or anything like that, I don't think. If Ray Wise is in the cast, though.
Yeah, he is.
Unless they're doing flashbacks, which would be weird because they're older. I guess he would kind of have to be Bob, or a personification of Bob.
Every time Cooper looks in the mirror, you'll see Ray Wise.
I don't know. Yeah, good question. I'm not really sure what else Ray Wise would be doing there, though.
I am interested as to when David Lynch says, the last 7 days of Laura Palmer are crucial to this new series. It's like, it's just kind of interesting. It's like, we're going to go, because what was one of the problems or people complained about in Fire Walk With Me was like, well, we know all this, or we know most of it, and we're going back to Laura Palmer. Can't we go forward and see what happened after Agent Cooper left the lodge? And so for Lynch to kind of persist and say, no, we're going to go back to Laura Palmer, I'm going to tie this back into Laura Palmer again. Does that excite you as somebody who is looking forward to the new show, or is there a part of you that's like, can we just get past the Laura Palmer thing and move forward?
That doesn't specifically excite me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know what he means by that.
Yeah.
He has to be some slight abstraction of what it could mean. Just by virtue of everyone being older, there's just not going to be a lot of going back. I can't imagine how they do it. So when I hear something like that, I think it has to do with like the Black Lodge stuff, the ring, I don't know what in Laura's life could be important, like in regards to like a 25-year later show. But,
right. And the giant is confirmed to come back, and he wasn't in the movie, so
that's cool. I like the giant a lot.
Yeah,
that's one thing we found out in the book, that there have always been weird ass giants there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sad that he wasn't in the movie, so.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, people are just kind of arguing with each other in the chat lines, as people typically do.
No kidding.
So anyway, we're going to wrap this up, but thank you, Evan, so much for joining me. So people want to read your work. Obviously, they can go to birthmoviesdeath.com. Obviously, follow you on Twitter. I really appreciate you joining me. Any last things you would like to say about the upcoming Twin Peaks before we go?
Oh, I knocked my headphone out. I'm excited about it, but I try to temper all my expectations with a little bit of realism. It'll be a show. It'll be 18 hours of David Lynch, no matter what. And that is something I'm really looking forward to, whether it solves Twin Peaks mysteries or not.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be pure Lynch, or as the head of Showtime says, pure heroin.
Pure heroin Lynch, however you put it. Yeah.
And Lynch had to go on record and say that he thinks that's a positive statement, that he hears heroin is a popular drug. So, yeah. and of course, I make the joke that this is also the year we're getting Trainspotting too. So heroin might come back into the public consciousness, I guess.
I guess that would be bad.
Yeah, that'd be terrible. But just real quick, I have to say, why is Trainspotting 2 calling itself T2? I mean, there's only one T2, and it came out in 1991.
I don't know. So, maybe enough time has passed that they can do that.
Yeah, I figured as much. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Evan, for joining me, taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day, everybody. We will see you next time. Take care.
Bye.